right, here we go. So just tell us your name and the school you are at.
Gary Roberts, I'm the Dean of Students at Cottage Grove High School.
Okay, so briefly describe your IIP and how it fit with the work at your school and the kind of data you collected.
My IIP was all around chronic absentee rates and their effect on academic performance. So I focused on a group of kids that fell between 8 and 12% absentee rate for the previous school year. Chronic absenteeism is 10%. So my goal was to keep the kids that were 8% the previous year under the 10%, and to keep the kids that were from 10 to 12% to get them under that 10% threshold. And so obviously data I collected was their attendance for the previous year, their absentee rate for the previous year, and I also collected their GPA, which I know that's not the greatest indicator of academic success, but my goal was to get their GPA up, which in turn would show higher academic growth. So yeah.
Okay. So what was the biggest challenge that you had during the course of this project, and what did you do to resolve it?
My biggest challenge was obviously, there's a time component in that. I was dealing with a list of kids that were around 75, I think, in numbers, and so when you're dealing with 75 kids, it's hard to work with them throughout the day. But I really think that the most difficult thing that I had to deal with is when you're talking about attendance, you have to have buy-in from parents. It's fairly easy to communicate with the kids on how important attendance is, but you have to have the parents pushing the kids to get here. So there's just that extra layer of buy-in that made it a little bit tougher. Was able to get through to some and not to others.
Okay. What was your greatest success, or what did you learn as a result of doing this project?
Well, the greatest success is that I was able to show that increasing attendance does increase academic growth. The kids that we were able to lower on the list or remove from the chronic absentee list, their grades went up. Mm-hmm. That was our greatest success. What was the other part of the question?
What did you learn as a result of doing this project?
I learned how important parent buy-in was, as I stated before. I also learned, though, just the nuts and bolts of how administration works. I learned about different policies between school board policies and ORSs through the state and OARs and all that stuff. And I learned that it's not just as easy as I'm going to make this quick, simple change. There has to be adjustments, and you have to look at things as a long-term plan and not necessarily a short-term plan. And so I think the IIP helped me plan things out in good stages, and as I was able to accomplish stage 1 and move to stage 2, I think it laid it out really nicely for us to make a difference in our building.
Great. And just, I guess, to wrap up, what would be your one piece of advice to somebody who is in the program going into this for next year and they're doing their project? What's your one piece of advice for them?
My one piece of advice would be to communicate as best you can with your other fellow administrators in your building and to stakeholders that are truly valuable to the experience for kids that you would maybe necessarily in some instances overlook. For example, custodial crews, cafeteria workers, EAs, coaches. For me, those people were really valuable because they have one-on-one interactions with students that teachers don't necessarily have those interactions. Office assistants are the same way, secretarial folks. Use those people as help in your IIP project because their input is just as valuable as teachers, but sometimes they get forgotten in the process. So, can you please state your name and your title here at Cottage Grove High School?
My name is Garrett Bridgens. I'm an electronic media teacher at Cottage Grove High School. I'm also the communications coordinator for South Lane School District.
Great, thank you. Briefly describe your IIP and how it fit with the work at your school and the kind of data that you collected.
My project was all about looking at the correlation between grit and perseverance and academic success. And I looked specifically at if you teach grit and perseverance to students and this idea of what's called a growth mindset, could that help increase student achievement? And it's kind of fit within the school and the school district because we're looking this year at specifically growth mindset curriculum, grit and perseverance in the classroom, and how it correlates to academic success. And so some of the data I collected with my focus group is I looked at students' grades. We had a program called Freshman Focus, and those students were it's an after-school program, students who are struggling with academics, who had in the first trimester a lot of D's or F's. In the second trimester, I brought those Freshman Focus students in and did grit and perseverance lessons with them, in addition to helping them with their core academics. The way I measure that with the data is I asked teachers in those subject areas where they had the D's and F's to evaluate them on a grit and growth mindset teacher evaluation scale. And so they evaluated each student at the start of Freshman Focus. We went through all the grit and growth mindset lessons, and then at the end of Freshman Focus, those teachers did the same survey again, and I'm looking at the data there and looking at if we increased their grit and perseverance in the classroom. In addition to that, we're looking at whether their grades went up as well. So that was how we kind of looked to increase student achievement.
Okay, cool. What was your biggest challenge and how did you resolve it?
The biggest challenge for me was making sure, like a lot of the teachers and stakeholders in the school are familiar with the professional development we've done with grit and growth mindset stuff in the school district, but translating that over to my project and making sure that they were all on the same page. I had to make sure I communicated well with the counselors who are running the Freshman Focus program, and I had to work with the teachers that were running the Freshman Focus program, like the actual program after school with the students. And I had to make sure that they were on the same page as me about what it was I was trying to accomplish with the project. And so that was the biggest challenge, just making sure there was time to communicate with them, to plan with them some of the lessons that we taught during the Freshman Focus program.
All right. What was your greatest success and what did you learn as a result of doing the project?
One of the things that we did earlier in the school year was that we literally had every student in the school take a grit and growth mindset survey. And so to get 700 students to take this survey and then to have an opportunity to then compute all of the data to look at where the grit levels were for different classes in our high school. For example, we found out the freshmen had the lowest grit score out of the entire student body. Seniors and the juniors were obviously the highest. So you could see that on the data. That was a huge challenge to get every student to take the survey and then to compute the data and to get a way to analyze it. And then the cool part is that we got to be able to share it back out to the whole school, so the school got to see that. And we looked at other things too, not just grade level grit and growth mindset scores, but we also looked at it between male and female, and we looked at whether what the scores were between students who participate in extracurricular activities and who don't participate in extracurricular activities. So that kind of helped shape kind of where my project was heading. Cool. What was the second part of the question on that?
What did you learn what did you learn with the result? Or as a result of the project?
Did I answer that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Right.
Finally, what advice do you have for people that are doing their IIP project going forward within the COSA program?
My advice is that there's a lot of components to that internship throughout the course of the year, and I'm somebody who likes to try to be ahead of the game, but you get going with your school year, whether it is you're teaching or you're doing your admin hours. And so just plan ahead, make sure that you have a focus for what you want to do, and lay your kind of an outline out. I use Google Calendar to make sure I have all my dates set. And so I just think being organized is my biggest piece of advice, because you have to communicate with a lot of people throughout your project, and you have to have a lot of meetings and things set up. And so just making sure you're organized and have everything in order and understand what it is that the program is asking of you is really key. And so I guess my last piece of advice would be just don't hesitate to ask people for help, whether it's somebody who's in a previous cohort or your advisors or teachers throughout the program, because that really helped me as I went through it.
All right, great, thank you.